Most roads fade into darkness after sunset, but this one feels like it's waiting for you. Hidden deep in western Pennsylvania is a road you've probably never seen on a map. No tourist signs, no warnings, no guardrails. Just a narrow strip of asphalt cutting through the silence between two forgotten mill towns, Ohioville and Industry. When night falls, there are no streetlights, only a thick, suffocating darkness that seems to swallow everything in its path. And for decades, locals have shared one chilling rule: never drive it alone after dark. Some won't drive it at all. It is called Kelly Road, and locals call it something else too. They call it Mystery Mile. The road itself is unassuming at first glance. State Route 4043, just over a mile in length, paved, quiet. It cuts north to south between Ingle Road and Wolf Run Road, threading through stretches of dense, overgrown forest that press in tight from both sides. The trees here are old, dark-barked and high-canopied, their branches woven together overhead like the ribs of a cathedral that was never meant for prayer. In the daytime, the road is dim. In the evening, it becomes something else entirely, something watching. But here is what separates Kelly Road from every other so-called haunted back road in America. It is not just about ghosts or shadows or things that go bump in the night. The most unsettling thing about this road, the thing that makes rational people stop mid-sentence when they describe it, is what it does to animals. Every single animal that enters the 1-mile stretch of Kelly Road changes. Dogs that are gentle family pets, animals that have never so much as growled at a stranger, begin snarling and snapping, their eyes wide with a kind of wild terror that their owners have never seen before. Farm animals that have grazed peacefully for years alongside the road suddenly turn on their own kind and on any human within reach. Raccoons, normally skittish creatures that flee at the sound of footsteps, have been reported lunging at people without provocation. Chickens have been found destroying their own coops in a frenzy. Horses have reared and thrown riders. Cats have drawn blood from their own owners. And then, the moment these animals cross the 1-mile marker, the exact moment they leave that stretch of road behind, the behavior stops, as if a switch has been flipped, as if whatever was controlling them simply let go. In the 1800s, a young couple set out on a leisurely carriage ride along this road, as couples of that era often did on warm evenings. The horse pulling their carriage was calm and well-trained. There was no reason to expect trouble. But somewhere along that mile of road, something spooked the animal. In an instant, the horse bolted. The carriage veered. It flipped. The woman was thrown from the carriage and her neck snapped on impact. She died before the wreckage had even settled. Her husband, or fiancé, depending on who tells the story, was pinned beneath the overturned carriage. He was alive, badly broken. He called out into the darkness for help, his voice growing weaker with every passing hour. No one came. He died slowly in the cold beneath the wreckage, his final sounds swallowed by the trees. To this day, people who drive Kelly Road in the hours after midnight report hearing something that stops their blood cold. The sound of a carriage overturning, wood splintering, and then, beneath the silence that follows, a faint voice, a man's voice, calling for help. You stop the car to listen, and the sound drifts toward you from somewhere between the trees. You get out to investigate. You find nothing, nothing at all. But the voice is still there, just at the edge of what you can hear, as if it is always just one step ahead of you, just beyond reach, just beyond help. That is the first thing Kelly Road takes. It takes the silence, and once the silence is gone, you realize you are not alone. Imagine you are driving Kelly Road for the first time. It is late October. The sky above is a bruise, deep purple on the horizon, fading to the kind of darkness that feels heavy, like a weight pressing down on the roof of your car. You have heard the stories, but you are skeptical. You are the kind of person who doesn't scare easily. You have a good reason to be on this road tonight, and you tell yourself that as you turn off the main highway and the trees close in around you like a door swinging shut. The first thing you notice is the fog. It doesn't roll in, it simply appears, low and dense, pooling around the base of the trees and spreading across the road in slow, deliberate tendrils. The headlights of your car push into it, but don't seem to reach as far as they should. The world narrows. The road ahead of you, perfectly straight, just 1 mile, begins to feel impossibly long. You roll down the window to get some air. That's when you hear it. From somewhere deep in the tree line to your left, something is moving, something large. Then you hear another sound, not an animal sound, not exactly. A low, rhythmic crash, like wood being thrown against wood, and then a shriek, high-pitched, ragged, coming from what sounds like a farm set back from the road. You cannot see it in the darkness, but you know something is wrong. Something has gone wrong, and whatever is happening in those trees is happening because of where you are right now. This is not imagination. This is the documented reality of Kelly Road. Reports from residents who live along this stretch, and there are few because few choose to stay, describe their animals transforming without warning. One farmer described waking in the early morning hours to the sound of his dogs attacking the fence of their kennel, throwing themselves against the chain link so violently that several broke teeth and bloodied their muzzles. The same dogs that slept at the foot of his bed without incident, the same dogs that had never in their lives shown aggression toward him. They were unrecognizable. Their eyes, he said, were wide open and completely unfocused, as if they were looking at something he could not see, as if something was standing right behind him in the dark. The moment the clock ticked past the specific geography of that 1 mile marker, the dogs collapsed. They lay down, panting, confused. Within minutes, they were calm again. They pressed their heads against his hands and wagged their tails. They did not remember what they had done. The animal behavior is what brings most investigators here first. It is visceral, undeniable, and deeply unnerving, precisely because it suggests that something is broadcasting, something that animals receive loud and clear on a frequency that human consciousness has learned to filter out, or perhaps something that targets a part of the brain older than thought itself, the part that knows fear before the mind has a chance to reason it away. And then there is the question of what happens to the people. In the late 1950s, a young girl, 6 or 7 years old, went missing from the area near Kelly Road. Her body was discovered in the woods alongside the road. What had been done to her was so disturbing that local authorities kept the details from the press for years. Her killer was never identified, never caught. The case remains unsolved to this day, and yet she has not entirely left. People driving Kelly Road after dark have reported seeing a small girl in the trees, visible in the sweep of their headlights for just a fraction of a second. She is running, not toward the road but away from it, scrambling up the darkened hillside through the brush as though she is terrified of something behind her, as though she is still, even now, trying to escape. More than a dozen people have stopped their cars and gotten out to help, believing they have seen a child in distress. They call out, they push into the undergrowth, they search with flashlights and phone screens. They find nothing. No footprints, no broken branches, no trace. And the silence that falls around them in those moments, they say, is not natural. It is thick, deliberate, as though the woods are listening to them the same way they are listening to the woods. But the girl is not the only child on this road. In a nearby house, a small white structure visible from the road on nights when the fog lifts, a boy has been seen standing in the yard after midnight. Residents who live along Kelly Road and adjacent properties have reported seeing him repeatedly over the years. He stands in the same place, always, and he does not move. What makes his appearance impossible to rationalize, what separates it from a simple case of mistaken identity or overactive imagination is this: he glows. Not faintly, not ambiguously, but with a cold white luminescence, as though a spotlight is trained on him from above, though there is nothing above but the black sky. His skin is paper white. His eyes, in every account from every witness across decades of sightings, are described the same way. They are completely black. He wears tattered overalls, old clothes from another era. He stands and he watches. And when you try to look directly at him, really look, steady and long, you begin to feel something shift inside you. Not fear exactly, something beneath fear, something older. But who is this boy? The legend that answers that question is perhaps the most disturbing of all, and it begins, as so many dark things do, with a mother's grief. According to local folklore that has circulated in Beaver County for over a century, a young boy was sent to fetch water from a well near the family's property along this road. He left that morning with a bucket and never came back. Days passed, weeks passed. Search parties combed the woods. His mother stood at the road's edge every evening as the sun went down, calling his name into the darkness. And then, nearly a month after he disappeared, someone found the well. The boy's body was at the bottom of it. He had fallen in. He had been there the whole time, in the cold, dark water, while his family searched the earth above him. The family sealed the well, but the boy's mother never recovered. This is where the story stops being about tragedy and starts being about something else entirely. Something that will make the hairs on your arms stand up if you read it alone in a dark room. The boy's mother did not simply grieve. Grief, after all, is a passage, a tunnel with darkness on one end and something eventually on the other. This woman did not want to pass through. She wanted to go back. She wanted her son returned to her whole and breathing and warm. And in her desperation, in the long sleepless months that followed his death, she began to search for a way to make that happen. She turned to the dark arts. Whatever specific practices she pursued have been lost to time, but the broad shape of the legend has been preserved in the oral history of the Beaver County backwoods. Rituals performed in the dead of night, symbols drawn in the earth around the sealed well, candles burning in every window of the small white house while the rest of the countryside lay in darkness. Her surviving children, already hollowed out by grief, watched their mother transform into something they did not recognize. One by one, they left. They could not be near her anymore. They could not be near what she was becoming. What she was becoming, the legend says, was something that had given everything to a darkness that would not deliver what it had promised. She could not bring her son back. But in trying, she had opened a door in that place, a door that she could not close, and something had walked through it that was not her son. The legend ends with the woman disappearing. The house was found empty one morning, the candles burned to stubs, the symbols in the earth still visible. No body was ever found. The local story, passed down through generations, says that she made one final bargain, her soul in exchange for her son's return. The devil, if that is who she was dealing with, accepted the first part of that deal, but the second part, the boy, he kept for himself. She has been here ever since, trapped, still in that house, still in those trees. And the house, that same small white structure near the road, is still there. People who have stopped their cars and approached it describe a sensation of absolute wrongness that descends on them before they reach the front door. A pressure behind the eyes, a ringing in the ears. And animals, even well-trained dogs brought by paranormal investigators, refuse to approach the house. They plant their feet in the road and will not move forward. They whine, they cower. They face backward toward the way they came, as if every instinct they possess is screaming one word: run. By the 1970s and 1980s, new rumors had begun attaching themselves to Kelly Road like barnacles on a shipwreck. This was the era of the Satanic Panic, a period in American cultural history when fear of occult activity in rural communities swept through churches, community centers, and law enforcement offices from coast to coast. And in Beaver County, those fears had a specific address. Reports began circulating that the woods beyond Kelly Road, the dark, dense, old-growth forest that pushed in tight against the road on both sides, were being used for cult rituals, gatherings, sacrifices, dark ceremonies performed in clearings that no map had ever bothered to name. Whether these reports were rooted in actual activity or were the product of a frightened community projecting its anxieties onto already dark geography, no one can say for certain. But this much is documented. Throughout the late 1970s and into the 1980s, multiple local residents reported seeing lights in the forest at night. Not flashlight beams moving through the trees, but stationary lights, low to the ground, flickering in patterns that suggested intentional arrangement. Some reported smelling smoke on nights when there was no natural source for it. Others reported hearing chanting, rhythmic, low, human voices, doing something with sound that human voices are not normally directed to do. The police were called more than once. The forest was searched. Nothing was ever found to corroborate the reports formally. But then, something happened that no one could explain away. A local man, driving Kelly Road alone at night in the mid-1980s, saw what he initially believed was a hitchhiker standing at the side of the road. This in itself was unusual. The road was too isolated, too far from anything to attract the typical hitchhiker. But the figure was there, a young woman, standing still, her back partially to him. He slowed the car. He stopped. She turned toward him, and in the yellow glow of his headlights, he could see that she was young, perhaps a teenager, and that her expression was completely blank. Not distressed, not cold, simply empty. He unlocked the door. She got in without a word. He asked her name. She said nothing. He asked where she was going. Nothing. He asked if she was all right. Nothing. She sat in the back seat and stared forward, and he felt, he later told people, that the temperature in the car had dropped several degrees the moment she entered. He drove. He was not sure why he kept driving rather than stopping and asking her to get out, but he told people later that it was as if the decision had been taken from him, as if the act of thinking about stopping the car and the act of actually stopping the car had been disconnected from each other. He drove until he reached the 1-mile marker. He looked in his rearview mirror. The back seat was empty. They start, always, with something ordinary. A person, usually on foot, sometimes alone, sometimes with a companion, decides to walk the road. Maybe they are curious. Maybe they have come specifically to investigate. Maybe they simply find themselves on the road at dusk and decide that 1 mile is nothing, a 15-minute stroll, and they begin to walk. An hour later, by their own internal reckoning, they emerge at the other end and call whoever is waiting for them at home. But the person waiting for them at home has been waiting for weeks. This phenomenon, if it can be called that, has been reported multiple times across the decades-long history of Kelly Road. People who entered the road at one end and emerged at the other with no memory of anything other than a walk lasting 30 minutes to an hour, only to be told by confused and frantic family members that they had been missing for days, sometimes longer. They are always physically unharmed. They always remember the walk as unremarkable, perhaps a little quiet, perhaps a little foggy, but nothing that would explain the gap between their memory and the calendar. Folklorists and scholars of the paranormal have a name for the phenomenon these accounts most closely resemble. They call it a liminal space, a threshold between the world we know and some other state of existence, a place where the rules that govern time and physical reality do not apply in the same way. Tom White, an archivist and folklore researcher at Duquesne University and the author of Haunted Roads of Western Pennsylvania, has described Mystery Mile as precisely this kind of space. Roads, he has said, are the most democratic of haunted places. You do not need permission to stand on them. You do not need special knowledge or sensitivity to feel whatever is there. The road is open to anyone. and whatever inhabits Kelly Road apparently treats that openness as an invitation. The road ends, or begins, depending on your direction, at a cemetery. Of course it does. The graveyard sits at the far terminus of Kelly Road, quiet and old, its headstones tilted by decades of freeze and thaw, some of them so weathered that the names inscribed on them have become illegible. Paranormal investigators who have visited report that their equipment behaves strangely near the cemetery gates. Electromagnetic field detectors spike without apparent cause. Audio recorders capture sounds not audible to the human ear in real time. And cameras produce images where light appears in shapes and concentrations that the surrounding environment cannot account for. Whether any of this constitutes evidence of the supernatural or is simply the product of investigative bias applied to ordinary data is a question that honest researchers continue to debate. But the people who live near this road are not debating. They have stopped debating. The debate ended for most of them the first time they watched a calm, gentle animal, an animal they raised from birth, an animal they know in the way you only know something you love, turn into something unrecognizable within the invisible boundaries of 1 mile of road, and turn back just as completely the moment that mile was behind it.
Consider what that experience teaches you. It teaches you that there is a boundary, that the boundary is real and specific and consistent, that whatever exists within that boundary is not random. It is bounded, it is contained, it is defined, and it knows you are there. It responded to the presence of the animal before the animal had time to understand what was happening. It reached into that creature's nervous system and turned fear into fury, docility into aggression, recognition into madness. And when you cleared the marker, it let go. Not because it was finished, because that was the edge of its territory. What does something that territorial want? The question has hung over Kelly Road for generations, and no one has answered it satisfactorily. The Native American curse theory is compelling in its logic. The idea that the Seneca shaman bound his dying fury to this specific corridor of land, that the land itself absorbed the violence of colonization and turned it outward on every living thing that entered it. It would explain the diffuse nature of the phenomenon, not one ghost haunting one location, but a kind of ambient hostility, a field of dark energy affecting anything with a nervous system that crosses into its range. The witch legend, the grieving mother who traded her soul for a resurrection that never came, adds layer to that hostility. Because if she opened a door in this place, if her rituals peeled back whatever membrane separates the ordinary world from whatever lies on the other side, then Kelly Road is not simply cursed, it is breached. It is a wound in the landscape that is never healed, and things come through wounds. The children, the murdered girl scrambling up the hillside, the boy with the black eyes glowing in someone's backyard, the silent teenager who gets into your car and dissolves at the 1 mile mark, are they victims of the breach? Souls caught in the tear, unable to move forward, unable to go back? Or are they something else entirely? Projections, lures, things that wear the faces of children the way a predator wears camouflage. That question is more frightening than most people are comfortable sitting with, because if the latter is true, if the children are not real children but something that mimics them, then approaching them, feeling sympathy for them, stopping your car for them is exactly what it wants you to do. Drive Kelly Road tonight. It is still there. The same mile of asphalt between Ohioville and Industry, the same dark trees pressing in from both sides, the same fog pooling at the road's edge in the cool evening air. The nuclear plant still hums on the horizon. The power lines still run above, their hum just at the edge of what you can hear. The cemetery still waits at the end.
Your car may stall. This has happened to many people before you, and their cars always started again, eventually. You may hear something in the trees, a sound you cannot identify, a sound that does not belong to any animal you have ever encountered, coming from a direction you cannot quite pin down. You may see something in the beam of your headlights, something that looks like a child, something that looks like a woman in a dark cloak moving slowly between the trunks of old-growth trees, something that looks like a man standing in the road ahead of you, just at the edge of visibility, not moving, not stepping aside. Your instincts will tell you to stop. Do not stop, because whatever is in those woods has been here for 300 years. It has survived a curse and a carriage crash and a murdered child and a drowning boy and a mother who bargained with something she should have left alone. It has absorbed all of that grief and violence and dark ritual, and it has grown patient. It does not need you to be afraid. Fear is not what it feeds on. What it feeds on is the moment you decide to investigate. The moment you decide, despite everything you have just heard, that you need to see for yourself. It has been waiting for that moment for a very long time.
The animals know better. Even in the grip of whatever controls them within that mile, even snarling, wild-eyed, and driven to violence by something they cannot see or name, they keep moving. They do not stop. They do not look into the trees. They do not try to find the source. Instinct, older and wiser than reason, keeps their legs moving forward until the marker is behind them. Maybe the animals have been trying to tell us something all along. Maybe the smartest thing you can do on Kelly Road is exactly what they do. Keep moving. Don't look back. And whatever you do, whatever happens, whatever you hear or see or feel pressing against the windows of your car in the dark, do not stop. Not on Mystery Mile. Not for anything.
California State Route 74, known to the locals as the Ortega Highway, is a winding serpent of asphalt that twists through the Santa Ana Mountains, connecting the suburban sprawl of Orange County to the arid landscapes of Lake Elsinore. By day, it is a scenic marvel, offering breathtaking vistas of rugged canyons and ancient oaks. But as the sun dips below the horizon and the shadows stretch across the jagged peaks, the atmosphere shifts. The air grows heavy, thick with the scent of sage and something else, something metallic like old blood. When the clock strikes midnight, the Ortega Highway stops being a road and becomes a corridor into the unknown. It is widely considered one of the deadliest stretches of pavement in the United States, not just because of its hairpin turns and sheer drops, but because of a darkness that seems to have a mind of its own. Have you ever felt the hairs on the back of your neck rise while driving a deserted road, certain that something is watching you from the tree line? The history of this passage is carved into the very stone of the mountains. Long before the asphalt was laid in the 1930s, these lands were sacred and feared by the indigenous Ajachemen people. They spoke of spirits that guarded the high passes, entities that did not take kindly to intruders. When the road was finally constructed, it was named after Sergeant Juan Francisco Ortega, an explorer whose own journey was marked by hardship and isolation. Since its inception, the highway has claimed hundreds of lives. The sheer volume of fatal accidents is staggering, far exceeding what one would expect from mere driver error. Some say the road is cursed, a ribbon of misery that demands a regular sacrifice. As you begin your ascent from San Juan Capistrano, the modern world fades away in your rearview mirror. The streetlights vanish, replaced by a crushing, absolute darkness that your headlights can barely pierce.
The silence here is not peaceful, it is expectant. As you navigate the first series of S-curves, you notice the crosses. They are everywhere. Small white markers adorned with faded plastic flowers and sun-bleached ribbons. Each one represents a soul that never made it to the other side of the mountain. They lean at odd angles, tucked into the crevices of the rocks or perched precariously on the edge of thousand-foot cliffs.
It is said that at night, these crosses seem to glow with a faint, sickly luminescence. Drivers have reported seeing shadows detached from any physical form, standing beside these memorials as if waiting for a ride. Have you ever wondered why the radio signal cuts out so completely the moment you pass the city limits? The static that replaces the music isn't just interference. If you listen closely, beneath the white noise, you might hear a rhythmic tapping, like fingernails on glass. One of the most persistent legends involves the Ortega clown. It sounds like a fabrication of the internet age, but the reports date back decades. Imagine driving through a thick patch of mountain mist, your wipers struggling to keep the windshield clear, when your beams catch a figure standing on the narrow shoulder. He is dressed in tattered vintage circus attire, his face painted in a permanent, grotesque grin. He doesn't wave, he doesn't move. He simply watches as you pass. Those who have been brave or foolish enough to look in their rearview mirror claim they saw him suddenly standing in the middle of the road, staring after them with an intensity that defies logic. But the clown is just a sentinel. The real terror lies deeper in the canyon, in the places where the guardrails are twisted and broken from recent impacts. There is a specific stretch near the lookout point where the temperature drops 10 degrees without warning. This is where the lady in white is most frequently sighted. Unlike other hitchhiker legends, she is never seen walking. She is always seen sitting on the guardrail, her legs dangling over the abyss. Her dress is described as a shimmering, ethereal silk that ripples even when there is no wind. Eyewitnesses claim that as they approach, she turns her head, but where her face should be, there is only a swirling void of gray mist. Some drivers, overcome by a sudden, inexplicable urge to help, have pulled over. They find the shoulder empty, the only sound the ticking of their cooling engine and the distant, mournful howl of a coyote. But when they get back into their car and check the back seat, they find a single wet footprint on the floor mat.
The physical dangers of the road are very real and provide a grim foundation for its supernatural reputation. The Seven Sycamores curve is a notorious accident blackspot. The road narrows here, flanked by ancient trees whose branches reach out like skeletal fingers. It is a place of perpetual shadow. Local law enforcement records are filled with accounts of unexplained lane departures at this exact coordinate. Survivors often tell the same chilling story. They didn't fall asleep, and they weren't speeding. They claimed the steering wheel simply locked, or that they saw a massive dark shape lunge across the road, forcing them to swerve into the canyon. Was it a deer, a mountain lion, or something far larger that hasn't been classified by science? The mountain doesn't give up its secrets easily, but it does leave clues for those who know where to look. As you push further into the heart of the Santa Anas, the isolation begins to weigh on your psyche. The canyon walls close in, and the sky is reduced to a thin strip of stars. You realize that if your car were to fail now, you would be miles from help, in a zone where cell service is a myth. This is the psychological trap of the Ortega. It plays on the primal fear of being hunted in a place where there is nowhere to run. Every creak of the car's frame, every rustle of the dry brush feels like a threat. You find yourself gripping the wheel so hard your knuckles turn white, your eyes darting between the road and the dark mirrors. What would you do if you saw a pair of red eyes reflecting in your high beams, not from the ground, but from 10 feet up in the trees? But the most terrifying aspect of the Ortega Highway isn't what you see outside the car. It's the realization that you might not be the only one inside it. The second act of the Ortega Highway's midnight haunting begins at the ruins of the old sanitarium, a place long since reclaimed by the scrub and the shadows. Legends say that in the early 20th century, patients were brought here for the mountain air, but many left in pine boxes. The foundation still exists, hidden behind a veil of manzanita and oak.
Hikers who stray too close after dark report hearing the sound of rhythmic coughing and the clinking of metal gurneys on stone. But the road itself is the primary conductor for this residual energy. As you pass the area known as the Candy Store, a local landmark that stands silent and dark at night, the road begins a series of dizzying descents. This is where the phantom headlights phenomenon is most prevalent. You'll be driving alone, the road ahead empty, when suddenly a pair of blinding lights appears in your rearview mirror. They approach at an impossible speed, looming closer and closer until they are inches from your bumper. The panic sets in as you realize the vehicle behind you has no discernible shape. It is just two orbs of piercing blue-white light. You speed up, your tires screeching on the cold asphalt, but the lights stay glued to you, mimicking every turn. Just as you prepare for a collision, the lights vanish. There are no side roads to turn off on, no turnouts for miles. The vehicle behind you has simply ceased to exist. Many believe these are the spirits of bikers who met their end on these very curves, forever doomed to relive their final high-speed chase against death. The Ortega is a favorite for motorcyclists during the day, but at night, the Widowmaker reputation takes hold. The road surface is often slick with Mountain Dew, not the drink, but a fine, oily mist that rises from the canyon floor, turning the asphalt into a skating rink. The psychological toll of the Ortega Highway is documented in the stories of those who frequent it. Long-haul truckers and local commuters speak of highway hypnosis taken to a terrifying extreme. They describe entering a fugue state where the road seems to loop back on itself. You pass the same crooked tree, the same rusted sign, the same white cross over and over again. Time loses all meaning. What should be a 40-minute drive turns into hours. One traveler reported leaving San Juan Capistrano at midnight and not arriving in Lake Elsinore until 4 a.m., with no memory of the intervening time and a full tank of gas suddenly empty. Is it possible that the Ortega contains pockets of distorted space-time, or is the mind simply fracturing under the pressure of the absolute dark? Consider the black dog of the Ortega. In British folklore, the black dog is an omen of death, and it seems to have found a home in the California mountains. Drivers report a massive, shaggy beast with glowing yellow eyes that stands in the middle of the lane. Unlike a living animal, it does not flee when you honk or flash your lights. It stands its ground, forcing you to stop. When you roll down the window to investigate, the dog dissolves into a cloud of black smoke, leaving behind a smell of ozone and rotting meat. Every documented sighting of the black dog has been followed by a major accident on the highway within 48 hours. It is a harbinger, a warning from the mountain itself that the road is hungry. Would you have the courage to keep driving, or would you turn back, knowing the road behind you has already changed? Deep in the San Juan Canyon, there's a place where the cliffs lean inward, creating a natural tunnel of rock. This area is known for the whispers. If you turn off your engine and sit in silence, the wind moving through the canyon begins to sound like human voices. They aren't speaking English. They speak in a guttural, ancient tongue that vibrates in your chest. Some say it is the mountain spirits. Others believe it is the collective echo of everyone who has died here, their final screams trapped in the acoustics of the stone. The most chilling part? The whispers start to call your name. They know you are there. They know you are alone, and they are very, very close. The mystery of the Ortega Highway isn't just about spirits. It's about the tangible, unexplained events that the police can't solve. Over the years, several abandoned cars have been found on the shoulder, engines still running, doors wide open, and personal belongings, wallets, phones, keys left on the seats. The owners are never found. No tracks leading into the brush, no signs of a struggle. They simply vanished into the night air. The canyons are deep, and the undergrowth is thick, making a full-scale search nearly impossible. It's as if the highway is a conveyor belt, moving people from our world into a place where they are never heard from again. What happens to them? Do they become part of the mist that blankets the road every morning?
But the most terrifying discovery was made by a maintenance crew in the late 1990s. While clearing a landslide near the Blue Jay campground, they uncovered a series of small hand-carved stone idols buried beneath the roadbed. They were hideous things, distorted figures with too many limbs and faces frozen in agony. After the idols were removed, the number of accidents in that sector tripled for a month until the idols were reportedly returned to the earth. The highway is built on a foundation of secrets that go deeper than the asphalt. As you reach the halfway point of your journey, the summit at El Carrizo, you might think the worst is over, but the descent into Lake Elsinore is where the road truly reveals its teeth, because that's when you realize your brakes are starting to feel soft, and you're not the one pressing the pedal. As you crest the summit of the Ortega Highway at El Carrizo, a false sense of security might settle in. The small community here, with its fire station and scattered homes, offers a glimmer of human presence. But don't be fooled. This area is the site of some of the most intense paranormal activity on the entire mountain. It was here, in 1958, that the devastating El Carrizo fire claimed the lives of several firefighters who were trapped by a sudden firestorm that defied the laws of physics. Locals claim that on hot, dry nights, you can still smell the smoke and hear the phantom sirens echoing through the pines. The spirits of the fallen firemen are said to patrol the summit, appearing as silhouettes in yellow turnouts, frantically waving drivers to slow down just before a dangerous curve. Are they protectors, or are they forever trapped in the moment of their destruction? The descent toward Lake Elsinore is a grueling series of switchbacks known as the Grand Staircase. Here, the road clings to the side of a vertical drop that plunges thousands of feet. There are no lights from the valley below to guide you, only the void. This is the territory of the Ortega Shadow People. These aren't just fleeting glimpses in your peripheral vision. These are solid, three-dimensional entities that stand on the edge of the road, taller than any human. They are described as being darker than the night around them, voids in the shape of men wearing wide-brimmed hats. They don't move as you pass. They stand like statues, their presence radiating a coldness that penetrates the car's heater. If you look at them directly, they don't disappear. They step toward the car. There is a famous account from a local nurse who was driving home from a late shift. She claimed that a shadow man appeared in the middle of her lane. She slammed on the brakes, bracing for an impact that never came. When she looked up, the figure was gone, but the entire exterior of her car was covered in frost, despite it being a 60-degree night. When she got home, she found long, thin finger marks etched into the dust on her trunk. These entities seem to feed on the fear of travelers, growing stronger as your heartbeat accelerates. The Ortega Highway isn't just a physical location, it's a hunting ground for things that exist on the fringes of our reality. The question isn't whether they are there, but whether they will choose to let you pass. The Children of the Canyon is another chilling piece of folklore that has been backed by numerous eyewitness reports. Drivers have seen small groups of children playing on the narrow shoulder in the dead of night, miles from any house or campground. They're dressed in outdated clothing, overalls and simple cotton dresses, and they don't seem to notice the cars zooming by. When drivers stop to check on them, fearing for their safety, the children run toward the cliffside and vanish. Some believe they are the spirits of a family that perished in a long-forgotten accident in the 1950s, their car tumbling into the depths where it remains undiscovered to this day. Have you ever heard a child's laughter coming from your own back seat when you knew you were the only one in the car? The engineering of the road itself contributes to the psychological horror. The Gibraltar Wall is a massive concrete retaining wall that looms over the highway on one side, while the other side is a sheer drop. The acoustics here are terrifying. The sound of your own engine reflects off the wall and the canyon, creating a cacophony that sounds like a dozen cars are surrounding you. It's a sensory overload that leads many to panic. People have reported seeing ghost cars coming directly at them in their lane, classic models from the 40s and 50s with dim yellow headlights. Just before the collision, the phantom vehicle passes through theirs like a cold breeze.
The physical shock of it is enough to send a driver over the edge. The Ortega doesn't need to touch you to kill you, it just needs to make you lose your grip for a split second. The most disturbing reports involve the faceless hitchhiker. Unlike the lady in white, this figure is aggressive. He stands at the end of a long, dark straightaway, his thumb extended. If you don't stop, he appears again a mile down the road, and then again and again. Each time he is closer to the lane. By the fourth or fifth encounter, he isn't just standing there, he is running alongside the car, keeping pace with you even as you hit 60 miles per hour. Those who have seen his face say it is a smooth, featureless surface of skin, like a mannequin. He doesn't want to ride to the city, he wants to be the one behind the wheel. The legend says that if he catches you, he takes your place, and you are left to roam the shoulder, waiting for the next car to pass. As you navigate the final miles of the descent, the lights of Lake Elsinore finally begin to twinkle in the distance. They look like a sanctuary, a return to civilization. But the road has one final trick. There is a bridge near the base of the mountain where the air turns foul, smelling of sulfur and stagnant water. This is the suicide bridge of the Ortega. It's not a large structure, but it has a magnetic pull for the desperate and the haunted. More people have jumped from this bridge than any other point in the county. Witnesses claim that as they drive over it, they feel a sudden crushing weight on their chest and a voice in their ear whispering, "Just turn the wheel." It is a final malicious attempt by the mountain to claim one more soul before they escape. But even if you make it across the bridge, the journey isn't over, because the thing that followed you down from the summit is still in your car, and it's just about to tap you on the shoulder. The final descent into the valley of Lake Elsinore should feel like an escape, but for many, it is where the true horror of the Ortega Highway crystallizes. The road straightens out, but the surrounding hills are barren and scarred by fire and wind. This is where the vanishing hitchhiker stories take a darker turn. There are reports of people picking up a disoriented traveler near the base of the mountain, only for the passenger to become increasingly frantic, screaming about the eyes in the dark before disappearing from the moving vehicle. The psychological trauma left behind is permanent. These aren't just ghost stories, they are the documented experiences of ordinary people whose lives were shattered by a midnight drive on Route 74. The road leaves a mark on you, a shadow that stays in the corner of your eye long after you've returned to the safety of your home. Let's talk about the Ortega Highway Jane Doe. In 1986, the body of a young woman was found in a ravine off the highway. For decades, she remained unidentified, a nameless victim of a nameless crime. Her spirit is said to haunt the area where she was found, not as a peaceful ghost, but as a vengeful entity. Drivers have reported their cars being pelted with rocks by an invisible force in that specific sector. Others have found their windows covered in small, muddy handprints while they were driving. The tragedy of the unidentified and the forgotten is woven into the very fabric of the road. The Ortega is a graveyard without headstones, a place where the earth holds on to the trauma of every violent end. When you drive here, you are literally moving through a field of unresolved energy. The skinwalker legends also find a home here. Given the road's proximity to ancient tribal lands, many believe that shape-shifting entities roam the canyons. Sightings of creatures that look like coyotes but stand on two legs and possess human-like intelligence are common among the El Carrizo locals. These beings are said to mimic the sounds of people in distress to lure drivers out of their cars. Imagine hearing a woman crying for help from the darkness of a ravine. You grab your flashlight and step out, only to realize the crying is coming from multiple directions at once, and it's starting to sound like a distorted recording. The realization hits you. It's a trap. By the time you turn back to your car, something is already crouched on the roof. The technical data of the highway supports the supernatural dread. The dead man's curve at mile marker 21.5 has a higher fatality rate than almost any other curve in the state. Highway engineers have redesigned the camber, added high-friction surfacing, and installed massive reflective barriers. Yet the accidents continue. The phantom cause is often cited in police reports, drivers claiming they saw a wall of darkness or a bright flash that blinded them. It's as if the road itself is rejecting the attempts to make it safe. The Ortega Highway wants to be dangerous. It thrives on the chaos and the fear. Have you ever felt a road push back against you, as if the very laws of physics were being warped by a malevolent will? There is a final, chilling phenomenon known as the passenger. Some who drive the Ortega Highway alone at night find that when they reach their destination and look in the rearview mirror, they see a figure sitting in their back seat for a fraction of a second. It's always the same, a man in a dark suit with a pale, gaunt face. He doesn't say anything. He just stares with eyes that are nothing but black pits. He is the collector, the personification of the highway's hunger. He doesn't want your life, not yet. He wants your fear. He follows you home, a lingering presence that makes your house feel cold and your dreams feel like nightmares. You never truly leave the Ortega Highway. A piece of it stays with you, a silent hitchhiker in the vehicle of your mind. As you finally pull into a gas station in Lake Elsinore, the fluorescent lights feel jarring and artificial. You look back at the dark silhouette of the Santa Ana Mountains, the Ortega Highway a hidden, jagged line through the peaks. You are safe now, surrounded by other people and the hum of the modern world. But then you notice the silence of the other drivers. They are looking at your car with expressions of sheer terror. You walk to the front of your vehicle and see it. The entire hood is covered in deep, rhythmic scratches, as if a massive claw had tried to peel the metal back. And there, tucked under your windshield wiper, is a small hand-carved stone idol, its face frozen in a scream. The Ortega Highway remains a paradox, a vital artery of California transportation and a gateway to a realm of primal fear. Whether it's the restless spirits of accident victims, ancient curses, or something even older that lives in the mountain's core, the road demands respect. If you find yourself on Route 74 after midnight, remember the stories. Keep your eyes on the road, don't look in the mirrors, and whatever you do, do not stop for anyone, because on the Ortega, you are never truly alone, and the road is always waiting for its next permanent resident. Will you be the one to make it through the night, or will your name be the next one added to a small white cross on the edge of the abyss? The mountain is listening, and it's already heard your heart skip a beat. Safe travels, if you can.
There are roads that feel lonely, and then there are roads that feel watched. U.S. Highway 90 stretches over 1,300 miles from Virginia all the way to Texas. But the part that keeps truck drivers awake at night isn't the desert or the mountains. It's the 90-mile stretch through the swamps of southern Louisiana, where the asphalt is slick, not just with rain, but with over 300 years of death. You've probably driven on highways that have a few ghost stories attached to them, but Highway 90 is different. Here, the ghosts don't just hide in the trees. They walk onto the road. They climb over the barriers, and sometimes they climb into your back seat. Before you even turn the key in the ignition, you need to understand where you're going. This road runs parallel to the Gulf of Mexico, cutting through bayous, abandoned plantations, and towns that Hurricane Katrina nearly erased from the map. But the real horror isn't the weather. It's what lives in the water. During construction, workers fell from the high beams constantly. Some say their bodies were never recovered from the murky water below. Others tell a much darker story. If you drive over this bridge after midnight, look at the pillars holding it up. Do you see the dark stains? That's not rust. Legend says that when the concrete was being poured, several workers slipped and fell into the forms. By the time anyone noticed, the concrete had already set. They are still in there, trapped, drowning in stone for nearly 100 years. But that's only the beginning of what happens on the Huey P. Long Bridge. Motorists who have driven across it in the early morning hours report seeing men in dirty overalls walking abreast in the middle of the lanes. You'll be cruising at 60 miles per hour, and suddenly your headlights catch them. 3 or 4 figures in old-fashioned work clothes, just standing there. You swerve to avoid hitting them, your tires screeching against the metal grating of the bridge. But when you look in your rearview mirror, there's no one there. The road is empty. Except, did that shadow just move? These apparitions aren't just visual. Drivers have reported that their steering wheels suddenly jerk to the left or right, as if an invisible hand is trying to steer them off the edge and into the black water below. Some have survived. Some haven't. The accident reports from that bridge are unusually high, and the police will tell you it's driver error. But the drivers who survive will tell you the truth. Something pushed them. Once you cross the bridge and leave the industrial glow of the refinery lights behind, the real isolation begins. This is the part of highway.
They're old, classic cars from the 1950s and 60s. You pass a black Cadillac with tail fins, and you notice the windows are fogged up on the inside. You pass a yellow Volkswagen Beetle, and for a split second, you think you see the driver's face. But there is no driver. The seat is empty. You slam on your brakes and turn around to look, but the car has vanished into the mist. This is the ghost of the yellow Volkswagen, a legend that has followed the Gulf Coast for decades. They say it's the spirit of a jealous husband who was murdered by his wife. He died in that car, and now he roams Highway 90 looking for passengers. If you flash your lights at it, he will follow you home. Don't look back. Keep driving. You're getting close to the Lafayette area now, specifically the exit for Bayou Tortue Road. If you see that sign, do not take the exit. Do not even slow down. Bayou Tortue Road connects to Highway 90 near Broussard, and it is home to one of the most tragic and terrifying specters in Louisiana, Mary Jane's Bridge. The story goes back to the 1950s. In 1985, a retired police officer stopped his car when he saw her. He got out, even though the August air was hot and sticky. But when he stepped onto the shoulder, the temperature dropped 50 degrees. He could see his breath. He asked her, "Can I help you?" She didn't answer. She just pointed at the water below the bridge. When he looked down, he saw a hand reaching up out of the mud. He ran back to his car and never drove that road again. If you see Mary Jane, do not stop. Do not roll down your window. And whatever you do, do not look into the bayou. Because if you see her body down there, she might try to pull you in to replace her. Part 2. By now, your heart is pounding. You've seen the bridge workers, you've dodged the phantom Volkswagen, and you've refused the silent plea of a drowned girl. But Highway 90 isn't finished with you yet. In fact, it's just getting dark. Literally. Up ahead, the road narrows. The streetlights that dotted the highway back near the city are gone now. There is only the blacktop and the trees. This is the stretch the locals call the Devil's Elbow. It's a sharp curve that hugs the edge of a swamp so deep that sunlight has never touched the bottom. If you crash here, they won't find your car for years. The mud will just suck it down. But the real danger isn't the curve. It's what's waiting in the trees. As you slow down to navigate the bend, your headlights catch something on the road ahead. It looks like a dog. No, it's bigger than a dog. For years, truck drivers running cargo between New Orleans and Houston have reported seeing no roadkill on Highway 90. Not a single possum, raccoon, or deer. They thought it was strange, but then they started seeing them.
The Grunch are said to live in the darkest parts of the City Park golf course and the levees of the Chalmette battlefield, but at night, they hunt along the highway. They move fast, faster than any animal you've ever seen. They can run on 2 legs or 4, and they aren't afraid of cars. In fact, some say they chase them. If you see a Grunch in the road, do not honk. Do not flash your brights. They hate light, but they love the sound of fear. If you panic, they can sense it. Put your foot on the gas and don't let up until you see the city limits. Because if they catch you stalled on the shoulder, well, let's just say that deer wasn't the first thing they've torn apart. Witnesses have described a stench like rotting garbage mixed with sulfur right before an attack. If you smell that smell, roll up your windows and lock the doors. They can't open metal. At least that's what the survivors say. But let's say you outrun the Grunch. You're shaking, your hands are white-knuckled on the steering wheel, and you just want to get to a motel. You see a light up ahead. It's not a street light. It's a blue light. It hovers about 10 feet off the ground, bobbing gently like a boat on the water. You've reached the Biloxi Bay stretch just before you cross into Mississippi. That blue light is the firewater ghost. During the 19th century, a lighthouse keeper named Peter was tasked with guiding ships through the treacherous waters off Biloxi. One night, a hurricane hit without warning. Peter lit the lantern to save the sailors.
If you see the blue light on the highway, look away. Focus on the white line on the edge of the road, because if you stare at the light for too long, you'll feel the urge to drive into the water. Peter needs a replacement for his lighthouse. He's been waiting over 100 years for someone to take his place. You speed past the coast, ignoring the beauty of the moon reflecting off the Gulf. You can't enjoy the view. Not here. You turn on the radio to calm your nerves, but the stations start to crackle and fade. Static fills the car. And then, the static stops. A voice comes through the speakers. It sounds like a phone call. A man's voice, trembling, speaking to a late-night DJ. "I've been in an accident," the voice says. "My car went off the road. I can see my body from up here. My wife is dead. My kids are dead. I'm dead." You've heard this story before. It's a famous urban legend. But on Highway 90, it feels real. The voice on the radio starts to describe the crash in detail. The sound of glass breaking, the feeling of drowning. Then the line goes dead. You turn off the radio immediately. But the car is still cold. You look in the rearview mirror. In the back seat, the upholstery is wet. There's a handprint on the leather. A small handprint, like a child's. You pull over to the side of the road. You know you shouldn't stop. Every horror movie ever made tells you not to stop. But you have to check the back seat. You have to prove to yourself that you're alone. You turn on the dome light, and your heart nearly explodes. The back seat is empty. There's no water, no handprint. It was just a trick of a light. You laugh nervously.
This is the lost boy of the southern highways. There are variations of this legend from Texas to Florida, but the version on Highway 90 is the most tragic. The story says that a mother and son were driving late at night when a drunk driver swerved into their lane. The mother swerved to avoid the collision, but she lost control. The car flipped. The mother was ejected through the windshield, and the boy was trapped inside. The glass from the shattered windows cut his face, but that's not what killed him. He died of a broken neck on impact. But his spirit doesn't know he's dead. He wanders the highway looking for his mother, asking strangers for help. If you look into his eyes, you'll see they are completely white, blind, because the legend says the glass cut his eyes out. If he asks you for help and you open the door, he will climb into your car, and then he will never leave. You'll look in the rearview mirror every day for the rest of your life, and you'll see a little boy sitting in the back seat, crying, asking, "Where's my mommy?" You lock the doors. Leads you down a side road. Bayou Tortue Road. You didn't mean to go here. Your GPS is glitching, spinning in circles. The road is narrow, barely wide enough for 2 cars. The trees form a tunnel overhead. This is where Mary Jane's Bridge is located. You see the old wooden bridge ahead, rotting and dangerous. And parked in the middle of the bridge is a car, a classic car, the yellow Volkswagen. This time, the door is open. You stop about 50 feet away. You can't go forward, and there's no room to turn around. The fog rolls in, thick as soup. You hear footsteps on the wooden planks of the bridge. Slow, deliberate. They aren't footsteps of a person walking normally. They sound like wet shoes squelching. You look up. Mary Jane is standing on the railing of the bridge. Her white dress is dripping black water onto the wood. She turns her head toward you, and her neck bends too far. Way too far. She smiles, but her mouth is full of mud and broken glass. She raises her hand and points at you. The temperature inside your car drops to freezing. The windows ice over on the inside. You can't see out. You hear scratching on the roof of your car. Not a branch. Fingernails. Something is on the roof. You close your eyes. You pray. And then, just as suddenly as it started, the sound stops. The ice melts. You open your eyes, and the bridge is empty. The Volkswagen is gone. Mary Jane is gone. You throw the car in reverse and speed backward.
You've survived the bridge, the boy, the creature, and the ghost. But dawn is still 2 hours away. The darkest hour is yet to come. Up ahead, you see the lights of a small town, Slidell. You think about pulling over at the Waffle House, sitting in a bright booth, drinking coffee until the sun comes up. But as you approach the city limits, the road changes. The asphalt turns rough, almost gravelly. The GPS says you're still on Highway 90, but this doesn't look right. The buildings are abandoned, boarded up, spray painted with symbols you don't recognize. This is the part of the road that Hurricane Katrina destroyed, and nobody rebuilt. The ghosts here aren't from the 1800s. They're from 2005. People report hearing screams on this stretch. Not ghostly wails, but real, human screams of terror. Some say it's the residual energy of the people who drowned in the floods, reliving their final moments every single night. You see shadows moving between the ruined houses, shapes that look like people, but they walk through walls. They walk through trees. One of them walks directly in front of your car. You slam on the brakes, but the car passes right through the figure. You feel a jolt, like hitting a pothole, but there's nothing there. You look in the side mirror. The figure is standing in the road, watching you leave. It raises a hand, as if waving goodbye, or maybe warning you to keep going. Don't look back. Don't ever look back. Finally, the sun starts to rise. The orange glow hits the rearview mirror, and the world looks normal again. The Spanish moss looks like decoration instead of death shroud.
But as you pull into a gas station to fill up the tank, the attendant looks at your car and frowns. "You drive through the pass last night?" he asks. You nod, too tired to speak. He shakes his head and points at your rear bumper. "You picked up a passenger." You get out of the car and look. There, embedded in the mud and dust on your bumper, is a handprint. A small handprint. And next to it, a wet footprint on the pavement, leading away from the driver's side door, toward the back seat. The back seat you checked 3 times last night. The back seat that was empty. You turn to look through the window. The seat is dry. The car is clean. But the air inside is freezing cold, and the radio is still playing static. Highway 90 is one of the most haunted roads in America, ranking alongside Clinton Road in New Jersey and the Highway to Heaven in Wyoming. It has been featured in countless paranormal investigations, from the ghost lights of Marfa, which sits on the Texas stretch of the same highway number, to the voodoo curses of New Orleans. But the difference between Highway 90 and other haunted roads is simple. On other roads, you visit the ghosts. On Highway 90, the ghosts visit you. They don't care if you believe in them. They don't care if you're a skeptic or a believer. They are hungry. They are lonely. And they are waiting for the next set of headlights to come bobbing down the dark corridor of the swamp. So the next time you plan a road trip along the Gulf Coast, maybe take Interstate 10. It's faster, it's safer, and it doesn't have bridges where the dead reach up to grab you. But if you're feeling brave, if you think the stories are just campfire tales meant to scare tourists, then drive Highway 90.
Drive it at 3 a.m. Roll down your windows, turn off your radio, and listen. Listen for the sound of wet footsteps on the asphalt. Listen for the crying of a little boy who lost his mother. Listen for the scratching on the roof of your car. And when you feel the cold breath on the back of your neck, don't turn around. Keep your eyes on the road, keep driving, and pray that the sun rises before the yellow Volkswagen pulls up beside you. Because once you see the driver's face in that empty window, you'll realize you were never alone to begin with. And you'll realize that you never will be again. This concludes our journey down Highway 90. Have you ever driven this road at night? Did you see the blue light or the woman in white? Some say that just by reading this story, you've invited them to visit you. So tonight, when you go to sleep, listen closely. Do you hear the sound of dripping water? Is that your sink? Or is something standing in the corner of your room, wearing a wet prom dress, waiting for you to open your eyes? Stay safe, stay out of the bayou, and never, ever drive alone.